happy to be here. And you guys can guess which is the most challenging out of all those accomplishments? It's the kids. 5 kids is, well, just for instance, just a snapshot of my life is this morning. I wake up to a child crawling in bed. Second later, my wife, who has been sick for 3 days, lost her voice, and now I'm up here, right? And she says, Kacey, he smells like throw up. And so then you got to go take care of the throw up in the kid's bed. And that was just this morning, but that's every day, something different every day in my life. I'm super excited to be here. Disability is such a interesting word because it encompasses so many things. And for so much of my life, I did not want to be considered in that category because disabled meant you couldn't do stuff. And that was not me. I was never that way. And I probably should stop going that direction because I need to start at the beginning. It's awesome going into schools because kids will, and I was just in one yesterday, and kids will come right up to me and they'll just kind of look. What happened? Really loud. And I love that about kids. They're so interested. And sometimes as adults, we, live in this PC world. You can't ask or can't do anything that might be offensive. But kids, they don't have that. And they're insatiably curious. And so I love it. So I look at them and I go, well, I don't have any legs. They're like, why? And very seriously, I'll look at them and say, a squirrel. But that's not what happened. When I was 6 years old, I grew up in a little small town called Kemmer, Wyoming. Has anybody ever heard of? Yeah, exactly. It's a really small town. Well, when I was 6, we went down to Utah, another small town. My uncle was going on a mission trip, and so we went down to see him off. Well, after the church services were over, we were standing on the edge of the road. Now, it was December 20th in Utah, so pretty cold, snow everywhere, and we were standing on the edge of a divided highway, so there's just one lane each way. Well, as I'm standing there next to my mom and my dad right by my side, they said, okay, Kacey, there's 2 cars coming in a truck. Well, as any good 6-year-old does, I looked one way at the 2 cars that went by me. But I forgot to look the other way and instead started sprinting across the road. I don't remember what happened. I don't know if I didn't hear about the truck or just went anyway. But I sprinted across the road right in front of the truck. Now, it wasn't just a pickup truck. It was a semi-truck that was barreling down on me. And I ran right in front of it. In the last second, I even dove to get out of the way. But the truck was able to clip my legs and rolling me beneath the wheels right there as my parents watched. Some of you are parents. You can imagine that horrible feeling. But truck stops. My dad rushes over, and I'm laying there on the road. And when he gets to me, my left leg had been completely severed by the semi-truck, and they later found it between 2 of the wheels. I got a little bit of stub left, which is good for wrestling and doing movies called Fear the Stub. It'd be great. Hey, if there's 5 Sharknados, I think Fear the Stub, Fear the Stub. I know, you guys are like, is it out yet? When can I see this? No, it's not. I got to get the funding. So, but my right leg was still, well, it was kind of attached. It was beaten up pretty good, but it was still kind of there. Well, my dad holds me and talks to me, what do you want for Christmas? And, just kept me going until the ambulance was able to get there and rush me to the hospital. The local hospital was pretty small. I don't know what happened when they wheeled me into the operating room. I assume the doctors just looked at me and was like, I don't think the big Band-Aid's going to cover this one. I don't know, but they weren't able to help me there. And so they had to fly me to Salt Lake City. And it was Utah through a blizzard. So that was nice. I really don't remember. I remember as they loaded me out of the helicopter on top of the hospital. I remember laying there on the stretcher, feeling the psh, 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 psh of the helicopter, and my one thought was, it's cold. That was it. That was my first thought. It wasn't until much later when I woke up that I found out I didn't have legs. But they rushed me into the hospital, and my right side was so damaged, they told my parents, okay, we might be able to save his leg, but it's going to require dozens of surgeries, and he may never be able to use it throughout his life. And my mom said, well, that's an easy decision. He can live without legs. Amputate his leg. And so they amputated my right side. Besides the whole, not having legs thing, I really didn't have that many injuries. I broke my right elbow. I split my tongue. I've knocked out a bunch of teeth. I have a nice little bald spot right there on the back. I know some of you are sporting your own more up here. So I had a few injuries. As a 6-year-old, one of them was so confusing. I had this big cut right down the center, and I'm like, Mom, what's that from? And they said, well, they had to cut you open to see if you were bleeding. And in my mind, I just imagined the doctor like he started to cut. And the nurse goes, doctor, he's bleeding. And the doctor's like, I know, and keeps cutting. The nurse is like, he's still bleeding. And like, I know, and just keeps cutting. And I didn't know. But now I understand they had to make sure, the inside stuff was good. And luckily it was. I also have one right here. And I always tell the middle schoolers this one. This is from a colostomy. Do you guys know what that is? It's when they take your rectum and they move it. And that was probably one of the worst things, to have to sit there with your rectum on your stomach and poop into a bag. But there was a silver lining. Okay, you got to look for the good, right? I have brothers. So not only did I poop in the bag, I also farted in the bag. And as anybody with brothers knows, that's a powerful weapon to be able to store your farts for your brother. Well, it wasn't very long until I was ready to leave the hospital. And as I was leaving the hospital, the doctors told my parents something that would change the rest of my life. It would be very important. They told my parents not to do stuff for me. Okay, now why? Now you have this 6-year-old. You have this little 6-year-old. He was a little 6-year-old. Now he's a really little 6-year-old. Why would the doctors, the people that should be taking care of me, tell my parents not to do stuff for me? Why would they say that? This is the audience participation part of the... Yeah, why would they do that?
To force you to learn to do stuff for yourself.
Exactly. I had to learn how to do stuff myself. I see a lot of, sorry for the air quotes, disabled people, and they live their lives disabledly. Disabilitily? They live like they're disabled because they let other people do things that they very well could do on their own. When I got home, this is a cool Uncle Kurt story. When I got home, I was in my room sitting. You can imagine this is the floor. If I sat down there, you couldn't see me. So I was in my room, and I wanted to show my Uncle Kurt something. So I'm like, hey, Uncle Kurt, turn on the light. Well, my dad, taking this lesson from the doctors to heart, slaps his hand away and says, don't you dare. Like that. And my Uncle Kurt turns around and is like, Bernie, stop being a jerk. I'm just going to turn on the light. He's like, Kurt, don't you turn on the light. He has to do it. And my Uncle Kurt got mad at my dad and said, Bernie, you're being stupid. Let me turn on the light. And my dad's like, no. And so I looked around the room, and I had to figure it out. I looked around the room, and I found a baseball bat, and I'm like, Dad. and I went over to the light, and I used the bat to turn on the light. And that was just one little example of the things I had to figure out throughout my life. Very soon after getting home, I wanted to start doing sports. Well, the next sport up was Little League, was T-ball. And I was in my, little hospital wheelchair thing, and my dad, I was pretty weak still, so my dad would push me around the bases. Now, I don't know your dads, but my dad is extremely competitive. especially when it comes to baseball. So little 6-year-old me would hit the ball, pew! Then my dad would push me, and I'm sitting there going, ah! Slow down! No, we're gonna win! I'm gonna die. Well, the next year I decided that I didn't want my dad pushing me around anymore. So I decided to get out of my wheelchair and start playing from the ground. Now, I won't be able to run that far, right off the edge. But I found that if I hit left-handed, I was like a foot closer to first base. So I would hit the ball, and then I'll pantomime my running. That's a horrible run. You'll see it in the video later. But then I'd run to first base on my hands and on my butt. Now, I wasn't very fast, and I got out a lot. But I was out there playing. I was out there doing stuff that honestly should have been impossible. How does a guy without legs play baseball? Well, I figured it out. Well, and this when, I was in elementary, and I had to do all those PE things. I had to figure out how to do push-ups. How do you do push-ups when you're in a wheelchair? Well, my first attempt was something like this. I got out of my chair, and I started doing push-ups like this. And I thought I was awesome. So I could do like 1,000,000 of them. Like, can you do a clap push-up? Oh, yeah. Well, after a while, though, I started getting into sports, and I wanted to get stronger. I wanted to be able to, do some harder push-ups. And so I started doing push-ups like this.
Yeah.
And so I started figuring out how to challenge myself and push myself. And then I got into wrestling. Hold on, got to tuck this in. Don't want to show off my My Little Pony underwear. That'd be embarrassing. You guys are like, oh, that's creepy. The kid thought it was funny, all right? All right, so I started doing push-ups like this. I had to figure out how to challenge myself and push myself. I mean, yeah, it's nice to say I was doing things, but even more than that, I wanted to be successful. Well, growing up in a house full of boys, I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. We were playing sports all the time, and one of them was basketball. I mean, this was the era of Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. We were Bulls fans, or I was at least. And we all wanted to be the next Michael Jordan. Well, I decided that I was going to try out for basketball. Well, I went down to the league, and my brother was trying out, and we did it. I would dribble the ball, and I wasn't good at shooting the ball, but I would dribble and steal and run the whatevers and do the things. And afterwards, the directors came up to my parents, and they said, we recommend Kacey doesn't play basketball. My parents were like, okay, he wants to play. Let him play. They're like, well, we're afraid he'll get hurt. My mom's like, oh, that's all right. No. She probably said something along the lines of, he's tougher than you are. Let him play. Basically, they didn't want to get sued, and I didn't get to play that year. Well, the next year, there was new directors, and I tried again. But once again, I was told, no, you cannot play. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in our lives, throughout your lives, you've had times like this, and you're going to have more times like this, where someone is going to tell you what you can't do. Maybe, honestly, now that we're adults, it's going to be you that tells yourself what you can't do. And instead of listening to that, now very easily, I could have put myself in the box they called cripples can't play basketball. I could have put myself in that box and not been able to play basketball. But instead of that, I went to another league, Boys and Girls Club, rolled up to the desk and said, hey, can I play basketball? To which they responded, yeah, we let everybody play. Like, what? And so I played basketball. I wasn't great, but I was able to play, made like 3 baskets the whole year. But I played. Well, later on, I get into 8th grade, and I have this experience again. I wanted to do cross country. Any runners out here? A couple of you. So cross country is not it's not on a track. It's not running trail. Well, it is running trails, but these are mud, especially here in the Northwest. You got mud, dirt, grass, running through the trees. It's pretty crazy. And this was the first time in my life my parents kind of questioned my life choices. They're like, Kacey, there's mud. I'm like, I know. Kacey, you're in a wheelchair. Yes. They're like, Kacey, that's going to be really hard. I know. It's a challenge. And then my dad, of course, looks at me and goes, well, if you start it, you got to finish it. Like, yeah, I know. And so I went in, I turned the form in, and then I got called down to the office. And I don't know if you've ever had this situation where you sit down and there's like 5 adults just staring at you. You guys are like, I hate that now. But as a little 8th grader, you know, my voice was still changing and they're just staring at me. I was a little freaked out. They're like, Kacey, why do you want to do cross country? I thought it would be fun. Well, Kacey, it's going to be hard. Yeah, my mom said there would be mud. And I said I could do it. I wasn't very eloquent. They're like, Kacey, we recommend you don't do cross country. Oh, okay. Can I do football? Now, I don't know what they were thinking, but they said yes. I don't know where cross country is dangerous and football is safe. You know, cross country, there's trees. Football, it's safe. We'll give him a helmet. So they put me in the safest place in football, defensive line, right there on the front. It was great, though, because I was nice and short. So the guys with the ball, they'd come running right at me. They couldn't see me at all. I'd grab them. Yeah! Except I was an 8th grade boy, so it was like, yeah, we're down. Well, the next year, though, I got into high school, and I decided, you know what? I am going to show them that I can do cross country. So I went to the office, said, hey, can I do cross country? To which they replied, as long as you sign the waiver, if you die, we don't care. And they let me do cross country. Now, I wasn't fast. I was last almost every single race, but I finished every single race. One race was called Trask. They run you through the mud. They run you through rivers. They run you through these deep mud pits where I would sink up to my neck. But I finished every single race. Well, year after year, I got faster and I got better. Until my senior year, I was actually so fast that I was actually beating the top runners at the races I went to. And in fact, I eventually won the district meet of my league. Now you think with that big of a switch, okay, here's a guy that can't do anything. You know, I mean, he's last, very last. He's doing, that's great, that's inspirational. And now he's fast. Well, there was a lot of people that looked at that as unfair. It wasn't unfair when I was slow, but now it was. And so they actually didn't let me run the state meet. Because now the reasoning is great, because it wasn't designed for wheelchairs. No cross-country courses. It's all through the mud and through the trails and grass and up and down hills. So no course is great for wheelchairs. But I was able to do that. Well, I did other sports. I wrestled. I eventually took 2nd place in state for wrestling. I did track as well, doing distance racing. And that actually is what led me to college, where I started doing wheelchair racing in college. I started track, and I got into marathons. Now, marathons, they seem crazy, and they are kind of crazy. And the people that do them are crazy. And I started doing them in college, but what was crazy is I loved them. So I guess that describes me right there. And I started doing marathons. In fact, I beat my coach at a few marathons. Well, after a year in college, I went on a mission for my church, and then afterwards came back and started racing marathons again. Well, after a while, though, I realized, now this sounds crazy, but after a while I realized that marathons had no more challenge, because it was just 26 miles. And I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see what I could do. You know, so often, you know, in media and when you see people in wheelchairs, it's always looked at as what they can't do. Well, I wanted to show, and I had started this motivational speaking company, and I wanted to show people what was possible. I wanted to show people what I could do and hopefully what they could do. Take away those excuses that we all put on ourselves. Every day we put an excuse. Why we can't work out that day. Why we can't, take your pick. You have your own challenges in life. And so I wanted to do something to strip away those excuses. Well, I started looking for a challenge. And then one day I see this race called Spartan Race. Who has heard of the Spartan Race before? All right, a few of you. So let me describe it. You take like a cross-country course. We're talking through the woods, mud, everything. You take one of those courses, and then you add obstacles like rope climb, fire jump, bucket carry, sandbag carry. You add all these obstacles, these crazy obstacles, and that's called a Spartan Race. Well, guys, I looked at this race, and my first thought was, okay, that's impossible. That's insane. That's so stupid. There's no way that a guy without legs can do one of those things. That's insane. But it wasn't too long until I realized, oh, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. I don't know if I can finish it, but I'm going to give it a shot. And so I signed up for the first one, and it just about killed me. It was awful. I get done with the race, and we're driving home. My wife looks over and says, well, that was fun. Guess you can cross that one off. I was like, yeah, that was hard. I want to do the next one. She's like, no, that one almost killed you. A longer one will kill you. And I'm like, maybe. But I want to do it anyway. And so I did the next one, which was twice as long, 8 miles. And then I decided to do the next one, which was 13 miles. And then I did all 3 of them in a year, called the trifecta. And every time I'm looking for a challenge. I'm looking for something to push me. Because guys, in our lives, regardless of our situation, regardless of our challenge, and honestly, we all have something that we can claim disability on. We all have a challenge in life that slows us down from accomplishing what we want to accomplish. Now, honestly, this is not my disability. I'm not disabled because I'm in a wheelchair. I have found a way to do just about everything, or I've found a way to do everything that I want to do. I have other challenges for sure. So as we look at this thing called disability, I still don't like that word. I like adaptive. There's a big push right now called para-athletes, adaptive athletics. Has anybody seen the Paralympics? Watch the Paralympics? You watch those guys. They are doing the exact same sports, training just as hard, if not harder than the Olympians, because every single one of the Paralympians has had some major tragedy in their lives. Now, each and every one of us has either had some major tragedy or has known someone with that. That's how we get stronger. Let me tell you about steelworking, like old blacksmith steelworking. The blacksmith would take a hunk of iron, usually a steel rod, and he'd put it in the fire. Now the fire isn't what makes the iron strong. In fact, the fire makes it soft. Heating up metal makes it soft. That makes sense. You have to be able to shape it. Well, that iron comes out of the fire and it's ready to be shaped. Now, it needs to be hard. Now, if you just let it cool, it would still be a very soft metal and it would break very easily. But what does a blacksmith do after he pulls it out of the fire? Not quite. What does he do before quenching it? Works it. By what? How does he work it? With a hammer. He's pounding on that thing, all right? He is slamming it. And I actually listened to a book recently, and it talked about the hammering. It actually changes the structure of the metal. Hammering it changes the crystalline structure to make a stronger and a tougher metal. And I realized after hearing that is exactly like us in our lives. Guys, that's kind of why, at least for me at least, that's why I'm down here on this earth, is to get better and to get stronger. Not necessarily these amazing guns right here. This too. But I just wanted to show off here. Let's just... I don't know how to pose. Okay. I'm not talking about that kind of strength. I'm talking about the strength inside. Because the more challenges that we're able to get through, the more challenges that we're able to accomplish, the stronger we'll be. And yeah, physically, but also up here. You know, once you've gone through some crazy challenges, the little things just don't seem that bad anymore. You know, after dealing with 5 kids, when your kid, you know, climbs into your bed covered in throw up, that's just Friday morning before you leave to Google, you know. It's just what life is. But that is exactly that's the change we need to see in disabilities. They are not a limiting factor. Yeah, there may need to be adaptations. There may need to be some accommodations. But as we help people to figure out what they can be, we need to help them, not enable them. So often, and I have a son who's also in a wheelchair. And so very often we have to balance what we do with him. Are we enabling him? Are we doing everything for him? Now what can he do on his own? And so as we look at disabilities in this new world we're living in, we need to see them in a different light. Disabilities are not dis. And I don't like it starting with the dis because it sounds so negative. Yeah, there's people with challenges. And it might be mental challenges as well. My oldest has ADHD and diagnosed with autism as well, I think. My second, he's autistic. The next has a speech delay. And the kid in a wheelchair, we adopted him from Ukraine. He spent the first 6 years in a bed. He has CP, he's blind. So we have some amazing diversity in our home. But you wouldn't believe what incredible kids they are. Because of their challenge, they have the world in a completely different light. And I can see their strengths because of their diversity. I'm diverse physically. My kids are diverse mentally. We all have, I see a lot of racial diversity here. Each and every one of us brings something else amazing to the table. Okay, now after going to that rant for a bit, I want to show you guys a Spartan race because this honestly encompasses everything that I've been talking about. This talks about what really is possible, but it also shows there's a few instances where you'll see people helping me because I'm short. And an 8-foot wall is just so high. And so I need help. But you'll see challenges, and the hardest one here is the bucket brigade. Now think about it, before I even show this to you, picture this, 80-pound bucket, just a 5-gallon bucket filled with rocks. Now a challenge, you know, most of you probably think that's a good challenge. Maybe some of you think it a good workout, but regardless, it's hard. Take your legs off. How do you move that bucket? It's a challenge. So let me go ahead and start this.
I was hoping for an indication. I was seeking higher elevation. I've been shaking, waking in the nightlight. I've been breaking, hiding from the spotlight. The more I stray, the less I fear. And the more I reach, the more I fade away. The darkness right in front of me, oh, it's calling out and I won't walk away. I would always open up the door, always looking up for higher floors. Wanna see it all, give me more. I was always up for making changes, walking down the street, meeting strangers, flipping through my life, turning pages. Like a prayer that only needs a reason,
Pretty cool, huh? Who's ready to go do a Spartan race now? Yeah. Nice. They do kids Spartan racing, so you can go do Spartan race. They have April, they do a super, and then in like September, October, they do a beast.
My life was cut short by a...
That's another one. In Snohomish, so right near you guys if you do want to challenge yourself. But that's like our lives, guys. We're going to have challenges. Life is going to knock you down, face down into the mud. And honestly, we're going to have a choice. You make the choice. You either start playing in the mud or you lay down and suffer. And I've chosen to play in the mud. So I'm a little kid at heart. Well, I want to open it up to questions for a little bit. And then I will ooh, hey, a mic for the crowd. That would be great. Please feel free to ask questions. Sometimes I'm disappointed in adults because you just sit there and stare at me. Kids are all like, how do you go to the bathroom? I aim for the middle. How do you go to the bathroom? So go ahead and question away.
So I just want to know how long it took to do the Spartan race. Like 13 miles is a long way. I can run 13 miles, but I have legs. Like, how long does that take? Because that's got to be even more grueling just because it's just so long.
Well, it depends on the terrain. So if I'm just out on the road, I can do about 2.5 miles an hour, which is pretty slow. But you start adding obstacles and stuff, it slows me down. Last April here in Snohomish, it was a bog. It was muddy. It took me 1 mile per hour. It was 8 hours to finish that. Just did one here in Lake Tahoe, 13.5 miles, but it's elevation. We were climbing 4,000 feet. And that took me 12 hours to finish that 13.5 mile course.
That's so amazing.
Yeah,
I'm really inspired.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's pretty cool coming up. Yeah, we got a Spartan in the back. Coming up, I am doing a 24-hour Spartan race in Iceland. Yeah, it's going to be a 5-mile loop in near freezing conditions. So I am nervous and excited and ready for that challenge. I made the mistake though. The guy that started Spartan Race, his name is Joe DeSenya. He was there in Tahoe and he saw me finish. And after the race, I looked at him and I said, well, Joe, I'm always looking for a bigger challenge, something to finally beat me, and you haven't beat me yet. And he's kind of crazy, and he looks at me and he's like, all right, I'll beat you. I'll find something. So he invited me to this. So I'll have to prove to him I can keep going for 24 hours. Did you have a...
How'd you get over the fire? Burning yourself.
Is that an awesome part of that video? Yeah. So I had no clue how I was going to do it. That fire jump was the first fire jump I had ever done. Now, I don't know if any of you have been close to a fire, but as you get closer, the heat is not contained right at the fire. This is the beauty of a fire. It radiates the heat. Well, about from here to those chairs, I could feel this blistering heat. And it was so scary to take those next steps just to get up to the fire. And without really knowing what to do, I found 2 places that weren't burning as bad, some non-burned piece of wood, grabbed onto them, and there was no choice. I had to put my butt right in the middle of the coals, and I placed it and got out and did one of these and made sure I wasn't burning. So I've done a few fire jumps since then, but yeah, it's always scary to do the fire jump.
Looks very exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah, Dave.
So how much training do you do and what does it look like for these races?
That's a great question. Well, with 5 kids, training is always a challenge. I mean, honestly, I love training. I love getting out and exercising, which isn't a lot of people. I understand, it's hard to get out there. I understand that. For me, it's even more difficult because I have little children. And so my training, my hardest part of these races is the walking. Climbing up a cargo net, pretty easy. Climbing up a rope, not easy, but I can do it pretty simply. Hauling rocks, it takes strength, but the hardest is just the mileage. And so when I work out, I'm out there running. Last night, I wasn't able to get out there till 9:45. Pitch dark. I kind of live out in the country, so there's nothing. It's pitch dark, scooting down the middle of a road, 30-something degrees. And about a mile from home, I heard coyotes yelling. So it was even more exciting last night. Kept turning around, looking for the little eyes in the darkness, and it was scary. So a lot of running. But I also spear. They do a spear throw. I'm horrible at the spear throw, so I'm always chucking a spear, trying to not have to do the burpees. If you miss an obstacle, some of the other obstacle courses, if you fail, you just go to the next one. Spartan Race, if you fail an obstacle, you have to do 30 burpees. And, well, mine aren't how they really do it, but you squat, you go plank, push up, do a push-up, and then you jump and put your hands over your head, and that's one. And you got to do 30 of them. So nobody likes doing 30 burpees, right?
So I'm a swimmer, so I'm curious about, I saw you did some swimming stuff. Can you share more about how you train there and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't do a ton of swimming, but I love like Ironman, triathlon training, and so I have trained a lot of swimming. I'm not super fast, but I can do is that 50 meters, the pool? I can do that in about a minute. So yeah, a decent pace. It's a decent pace, but I haven't done a full Ironman. Did a half Ironman, because, I'm half of a man. That's a stump slapper. Oh, okay. I have too many legless jokes. So yeah, I love swimming. I did a mile swim for the half Ironman. Plan on doing a full Ironman one day. So I like swimming. It's good.
Tell us about your gear. Like, do you wear something
gear is a
resembles
constant
shoes
battle.
or
Well, nobody creates a boot for a guy without legs. And so I have had to, I assume some of your jobs you have to be very innovative in what you do. Well, I assume, I don't know. You guys are Google. Google does everything. So I assume you have to create new things. And that's what I have to do all the time. The boot I wear is off of a design that my mom did way back when I was in high school. And I've been refining it. It's a simple just sleeve with a bottom on it. But I've had to actually, right near here, there's Seattle Fabrics, and they have everything. So I went there. They have waterproof vinyl, and I used to sew it together, but now I glue it together to make it even more durable. But every single time, every single training run I go on, I come up with a better idea of how to work my boot and how to make a better one. And there's been a good dozen different styles and things I've done. And that's just my boot. Not only that, gloves are a huge issue. I usually wear mechanic gloves because they have a good thing on the thing, but on the thing on the thing. Wow. I'm a public speaker. I get it. I do this for a job. Thing on the thing. Guard on the knuckles. But it's a constant struggle to find more padding. Going to Iceland, it's going to be wet and cold, and if my hands get cold, it's going to really slow me down. So, yeah, gear is a constant battle. Even a backpack is a huge issue because I'm doing this. It scrapes right there on my neck, and so I've had to figure out friction reduction. My arms are doing this, so I have to figure out how to protect my skin on different places. Gear is a constant battle.
I was curious about having children with autism and ADHD. What do you find is effective for, communicating and being patient and positive? And do you have sort of an approach that you take to inspire them and motivate them to create a happy environment?
Man, you're asking the easy questions today, right? Oh, man. Well, I'm the perfect parent. Just ask my... No, I'm not. Is there such a thing? That's a hard question right there. It is, honestly, it's learning. It is learning, but you're right. being patient, because kids aren't. Kids are, I mean, I remember growing up, I'm like, well, if you calmly explain to a child, they'll understand. I heard some laughs at that. No, a child, kids are kids. Patience. And parenting is the great patience, learner. Kids are crazy. They just are. And as one is sitting around, hi, kid. Hello. But they're also awesome. They'll learn. They will learn. And sometimes it's going to take years. My daughter, extreme ADHD. I mean, not like, little active, like literally bouncing off the walls, can't sit in a seat, ADHD. But we've just little here and there, patience, keep reinforcing, never enabling, never giving them excuses like, oh, you have ADHD, you don't have to do this. No, now it's, well, we're going to find a way for you to take notes. We're going to find a way for you to do this. Autism, same thing. My son, he gets overwhelmed by things. Okay, Patrick, how are we going to deal with this? Okay, when you start feeling like this, let's do this and this and this. And of course, they listen right away to that. But patience. It's all about patience and just step by step. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I was curious, what's your diet like? What are you drinking and eating so you're not experiencing muscle failure?
You guys are asking the worst questions. I have 5 kids. I eat whatever I can throw in their faces. Years ago when I was really training for wheelchair racing, doing a lot of marathons, I kept reading these books about these guys and they were only eating plants. They weren't eating meat. And I'm like, oh, that's horrible. You got to eat meat you got to be, strong. You got to eat meat. And then I realized, I'm like, fine, I'll try it. And then I went and set the course record on this race I did right after that. I'm like, curse you, people that know what you're talking about. So plant-based diet. I love like sweet potatoes and corn, and I make something called Ezekiel bread. It just has a lot of grains in it. I'm not like totally like die hard, no animal stuff. I eat eggs and some milk and stuff, but mostly whole foods. Danielle took me to the free restaurant. It was wonderful. You guys. And like everywhere I looked, it was just whole foods, especially the salad bar. But the more processed stuff you eat, the more junk you're putting in your body. You wouldn't put sand in your gasoline tank. Why are you putting McDonald's into your body? It's not going to help you. So, given I'm not perfect on that, I travel all the time. It was a 4-hour drive up here, 4-hour drive back. It's always a constant challenge to eat right. But the more I focus on whole foods, the more you can eat things that are not heavily processed, the better off you're going to be. And that helps you in every aspect.
Yeah, so it looks like you've got a big focus on doing able-bodied sports. And I was wondering if you'd done much with the disabled sports, Paralympic sports like basketball, hockey, or wheelchair track events.
I have. So I did wheelchair racing, high school, college. When I hit U of A in college, they had wheelchair basketball. Now I wrestled in high school. If you know anything about wrestlers, we can't shoot the basketball. We're like here and it's over there. It doesn't work. But they're like, oh, just come out for the team. And I get out there and I realized how much, especially wheelchair basketball, you really don't have to touch the ball. You just go, zooming down the court. Absolutely love wheelchair basketball. It's a blast. But I've got to play around with seated volleyball. I found out that I'm freaking awesome at seated volleyball. I'm amazing at that. I'd love to do sled hockey. I do it when I can. Absolutely. Go ahead.
I thought I heard you mention church, so I wanted to ask, are you a person of a particular faith, and has that impacted your outlook, or were you ever angry at God?
I never got angry. I am a person of faith. I was brought up in it's called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, brought up from birth, and so I do have a very strong spiritual aspect to my life. And I talked about my purpose here on earth. I believe we all have that purpose. But I've found that having that spiritual outlook, now whatever that be, if you have a religious outlook or even if it's just a different spiritual aspect to yourself, as you look inward in whatever way you do, you're going to be able to answer those hard questions about yourself. One of the most amazing teachings that I follow, it talks about being humble. And we have these challenges. We have weaknesses in life. It's so that we can be humble. And that's in whatever spiritual aspect you look at, those weaknesses can actually become your strengths as you rely on those for me it's God, for others it's different things. As we rely on those other strengths, we can make those weaknesses become strong. And honestly, that's what I believe we're down here to do.
Hello, thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
You were mentioning some challenges while being a public speaker, traveling, eating.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about?
Yeah, well, I've been doing this business for 3 years now. I was actually trained as a teacher through college because I wanted to motivate youth. I love the youth. They have such potential, but nowadays, man, this right here, this is horrible. I know. You guys are Google. You guys like, that's my living. I know. This is the Pixel 2. I love Google, you know. But for teenagers, it's a really hard challenge. And so I love motivating the youth, and that's why I became a teacher. And so starting this motivational speaking business, I've been doing it, but there are a lot of challenges with health as I travel, eating right, exercising. When you travel, I drove 4 hours up. I'm here for, hours, and then I'm driving 4 hours home. When do I exercise? Well, it'll be after all the kids are in bed and I go out, chasing coyotes again tonight. So yeah, there's so many challenges just in this job. It's traveling all the time, figuring out, eating right, figuring out how to work while you're traveling, figuring out how to do all that stuff. Yeah, thank you. Well, I was told to wrap it up, so I'm so grateful to be here. But before I leave, I do want to. This isn't just sitting here randomly for no reason. I know some people are coming like, why is there a dirty ladder in our conference room? I brought it, and this is the ladder I use. A ladder is very much like things in our lives, and I'll give the example. I just finished writing my book. Plug for my book. It's coming out in April. Plug for my book. Look for it on social media. Plug for social media. Our lives and our challenges are very much like a ladder. As we start on those challenges, they may seem impossible. I mean, how does a guy without legs climb a ladder? Well, for me, it was, how do I write a book? And I'm awful. I was awful at writing. But how do you do it? It's one step at a time. And as we take that first step, we realize that that next step is going to be hard, but it's as hard as the last one. And as we continue on through that challenge, we take one step at a time. And it might be so challenging, as you watched in the video, that you can't do it on your own. It might be disability. It might be death. It might be divorce. It might be you get fired. It might be so many things can happen in our lives. But as we look to others, look to our friends and family, coworkers, all those people for help, we can get through that next step. But guys, as we continue to do those hard things, we will be able to overcome even the toughest challenges in our life. It might take years. It took me 4 years of cross country till I was any good. It took me 4 years of wrestling to make it to the state championships. But as we overcome those challenges, we're going to find some strengths. And honestly, now you've gotten to the top. Now you know you can overcome it. But you know what? You're going to find some other things that you can do that are even more amazing. I hope you remember. I know you're not going to remember everything I said today. You're going to remember the crazy tricks and the funny stories, but I hope you remember that nothing is impossible. Okay? We all have some sort of adaptive thing. We all have a challenge in our lives, but we all can overcome them one step at a time. Thank you so much for having me here. Everybody, remember, get out there and have a great day and rise up. Thank you so much. Take care.